I pretended to reconcile with my estranged brother to access our father's inheritance. I hugged him at the lawyer's office, then whispered, "He always loved me more." As the will was read, my brother pulled out a second envelope. I hadn't seen my brother Nathan in almost 8 years. Not since our father caught him skimming money from the family construction business. Dad didn't press charges, he was old school like that, but he cut Nathan off completely. No contact. No money. Nothing. And I agreed with him. Nathan had always been the charming one, the talker, the manipulator. I was the one who stayed behind, ran the business with Dad, took him to his doctor appointments, and handled everything when Mom died. So when Dad passed from a stroke last October, it was me who handled the funeral, the cremation, and all the legal paperwork. And it was me who had to deal with Nathan resurfacing like a ghost 2 weeks later. He emailed me out of nowhere. Said he wanted to make things right. Said Dad wouldn't want us to keep fighting. I should have deleted it. But instead, I waited a couple of days, thought it through, and replied, "Sure. Let's talk." We met at a diner just off Route 3 in Clifton, New Jersey. He looked older, tired, like life had knocked him around a bit. But the second he smiled and went in for that hug, I knew he hadn't changed. That fake warmth. That performance. I smiled right back. "I'm glad we're doing this," he said. "Me too." I told him Dad had set up a will and that the lawyer wanted both of us present when it was read. Nathan seemed genuinely surprised, which told me he didn't know what Dad had planned. That worked in my favor. Truth is, Dad had made it very clear years ago I was getting everything. The house, the business, the savings, all of it. He said Nathan already got more than he deserved. I didn't argue. I set the appointment for a Friday afternoon. Nathan showed up in a black button-down shirt, clean-shaven, trying to look respectable. I wore the same thing I'd wear to work. As we sat in the law office in Newark, waiting for Dad's attorney to come in, Nathan leaned over. "You think he left it all to you, don't you?" he asked quietly. I just smiled. "We'll see." The lawyer, Mr. Bernstein, was an old friend of Dad's. He shook both our hands and opened the file. As per John Amato's last will and testament, he began. When he got to the inheritance section, I glanced at Nathan. He was still as a stone. Mr. Bernstein read the terms, everything to me, all assets, accounts, and properties. Then I turned to Nathan, hugged him lightly, and whispered into his ear, "He always loved me more." That was when Nathan calmly pulled a second envelope from his inside jacket pocket and placed it on the table. "I was told to give this to you after the will was read," he said to Bernstein. The room went silent. I don't even know why I agreed to meet him. Maybe part of me wanted to see if he'd changed. Maybe part of me wanted to look him in the eye and see if he had the guts to apologize. But mostly, I just wanted to control the situation. Nathan doesn't show up unless he needs something, and when Dad died, I knew it was only a matter of time before he came crawling back. The email was short. Just said, "I heard about Dad.
I'm sorry.
We should talk." That was it.
No emotion.
No details. Just enough to put the ball in my court. I sat with it for 2 days before replying. I didn't tell my wife. I didn't tell my kids. This wasn't about them. This was between me and him. We met at a rundown diner in Clifton that we used to go to as kids. I picked the place on purpose. It was where Dad would take us after Little League games, before Nathan started stealing, before everything went to hell. I wanted to remind him of who we used to be and what he destroyed. He walked in like nothing had happened. Same cocky walk, same fake charm. He opened his arms like we were long-lost friends. "Hey, man." I stood up. I didn't hug him, but I didn't stop him from hugging me either. We sat. He ordered coffee. I didn't get anything. "I've been thinking a lot about how things ended," he started. I let him talk. He talked about how hard life had been, how he regretted losing touch, how he missed the family. Not once did he say, "I stole." Not once did he say, "I was wrong." He wanted forgiveness without admitting what he did. When he asked about Dad's will, I acted casual. Told him there was a reading scheduled for next Friday. Told him the lawyer requested both of us. He nodded like it was no big deal. "That's fair," he said. The thing is, I already knew what was in the will. Dad, and I had gone over it in his hospital room 6 months before he passed. He made it clear Nathan was out. Not because of spite, but because he didn't trust him. He said, "He'll just waste it. You know that." I didn't argue. I knew Dad was right. The day of the reading, Nathan showed up looking like a man trying to convince the world he had his life together. Button-down shirt, slacks, hair combed neatly.
I almost laughed.
I wore jeans and a work shirt because I actually work for what I have. The lawyer's office was small, old, and smelled like paper. Mr. Bernstein was already waiting for us when we arrived. He gave us polite nods and opened the folder slowly. Everything was calm, professional, like any other legal meeting. Then he started reading. Dad left me everything. The business, the house,
His accounts, his car.
even the old fishing cabin upstate that Nathan used to love. I watched Nathan's face as the words sank in. He tried to keep it together, but I could see the twitch in his jaw, the tightness in his neck. I leaned over and hugged him, just to twist the knife. I whispered, "He always loved me more." It was cruel. I know that. But after everything he put our family through, it felt right. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "I was told to give this to you after the will was read," he said to Bernstein. The room went quiet. Bernstein looked confused. He opened the envelope slowly, pulled out a single page, and read it silently for a moment. Then his face changed. He looked up at me and said, "We need to talk privately." I followed Mr. Bernstein into a side office, still trying to keep my face neutral, but my chest was pounding. I kept thinking, what the hell did Nathan pull now? Because I knew him. He didn't do anything unless it benefited him. That envelope wasn't some mistake or leftover paperwork. It was a move. Bernstein shut the door behind us and held up the letter. This changes things," he said carefully. "What is it?" I asked. "It's a handwritten amendment. A codicil. Signed and dated. Your father apparently added this just 2 months before he passed. It adds Nathan back into the will." I blinked. "That's not possible," I said. Dad couldn't even hold a pen by that point. Bernstein sighed. "It's definitely his signature. And I can tell you it was notarized. There's a stamp. A witness." I felt like the floor shifted under me. "Who notarized it?" He handed me the letter. I read it. It was short. 3 lines in my father's handwriting. "I want to split the estate 50/50ths between both my sons. Nathan deserves a second chance. John Amato, April 6th. Notarized by some name I didn't recognize. Witnessed by a man named Carl Peters." My stomach turned. April 6th was during the week Dad was in and out of the hospital. I remembered that week vividly. He barely spoke. Couldn't feed himself. And I sure as hell never saw this Carl Peters. I stepped back into the main room and stared at Nathan. He sat there like a king on a throne, hands folded neatly, like he already knew what was coming. "You son of a bitch," I said. "You forged it." He raised his eyebrows, all innocent. "You really think I'd do that? That I'd fake Dad's handwriting and find some random notary?" "Yes," I said. "Because you've done worse." Mr. Bernstein tried to keep the peace. "Let's not jump to conclusions. If you're questioning the document's validity, we'll need to bring in a handwriting expert. Possibly open a legal case. But for now, legally, I'm required to honor this amendment." Nathan smiled. A smug, slow curl of the lips. That's when I realized he'd planned this. All of it. The email. The fake reconciliation. The envelope. He never came back for peace. He came back to take what he thought he was owed. I walked out without another word. I didn't want to explode in that room. I needed to think, to regroup. But inside I was seething. That night, I stayed up late going through Dad's journals. He kept everything. Old receipts, letters, appointment books. I looked through the April entries. Nothing. No mention of meeting a notary. No mention of Nathan.
No Carl Peters.
I called the hospital the next day and asked for the visitor logs from April 6th. Nathan's name wasn't on there. Neither was anyone named Carl. He hadn't even been there. I knew Nathan was lying. I just didn't know how far he went or who he'd roped into it. But something didn't sit right with me, and I wasn't about to let him walk away with half of everything my father and I built. First, I hired a handwriting expert. A real one, not some internet hack. I sent her copies of the amendment, alongside dozens of samples of Dad's real handwriting, letters, cards, even old contracts. She took a few days to analyze them. When she called me back, her voice was blunt. "It's close," she said, "but it's not a match. This was done by someone trying to imitate your father's writing. Certain strokes, especially the way he forms his R's and his capital J's, are just off." I forwarded her full report to Bernstein. Then I went looking for Carl Peters, the notary. It took some digging, but I eventually found a guy by that name who lived in Jersey City. He worked out of a UPS store. I drove there in person, told him I needed to verify something he notarized for a John Amato on April 6th. He pulled out a book. Looked confused. "I've never notarized anything for that name," he said. "And not on that day." He showed me his log. Nothing. I took photos. I recorded our conversation. Then I called my lawyer. Bernstein agreed to pause all asset transfers until a full investigation could be done. Nathan was furious. He sent me a long text that night. "You're really dragging this through the mud just because you don't want to share? Grow up." I didn't respond. I was done pretending. A week later, I got a call from someone I didn't expect. Dad's old nurse, Teresa. She'd taken care of him at the rehab center during his final months. She said she'd heard about the will dispute and wanted me to know something. "Your brother showed up once," she said. "But it wasn't in April. It was March. And he only stayed 15 minutes. Your father didn't even recognize him." I asked if she remembered the exact date.
She did.
March 12th. I asked her to write that down in a sworn affidavit. She agreed. Then came the twist I hadn't expected. Teresa mentioned that my dad had given her a sealed envelope the week before he died. He asked her to give it to me if anything ever felt off. She still had it. Said she forgot about it until now. I met her the next day. She handed me a faded white envelope with my name on the front. Inside was a handwritten note, dated April 3rd. "If Nathan shows up after I'm gone, be careful. He's after the money. He always was. I didn't change a thing in my will. If you see anything with a different date, it's fake. Don't let him win." It was Dad's handwriting, and it was all I needed. I took that letter and drove straight to Bernstein's office. I didn't call. I didn't ask for an appointment. I just showed up and handed him the envelope from my father. He opened it, read it once, and leaned back in his chair. He didn't say a word for a few seconds. Then he looked up at me. "This changes everything," he said. I nodded.
"Yeah.
"I know. Between the handwriting expert's report, the notary's denial, the nurse's affidavit, and now this letter, there was no way that amendment would hold up." Bernstein agreed to take it all to probate court. He also called in a forensic document examiner to give a second opinion, just to be thorough. I wanted this done clean. Legal. Final. Nathan didn't show up to the hearing.
His lawyer did.
Tried to argue the amendment was valid, that our father had a change of heart. But they had nothing. No explanation for the forged notary entry. No rebuttal to the handwriting analysis. No answer to the nurse's sworn statement. When the judge read Dad's private letter aloud in court, that was the moment everything fell apart. The judge declared the amendment invalid. The original will stood. Everything 100% was mine. And that should have been enough. But it wasn't. Because Nathan didn't just try to steal from me. He tried to erase years of sacrifice. He tried to rewrite history, cash in on the man he betrayed, and rob me of the one thing I had left, my father's legacy. So I pressed charges.
Forgery. Fraud.
Attempted theft of estate assets. And because the notary's stamp was faked, they added criminal impersonation to the list. Nathan was arrested a month later. He tried to play dumb, said it was a misunderstanding, that it was a friend who'd done the paperwork. But his friend, Turned out to be a deadbeat from his AA group who flipped fast under pressure. Gave them everything, emails, text messages, even a note where Nathan had practiced Dad's signature. He took a plea deal. 18 months probation, a $10,000 fine, and a felony on his record.
He lost his job.
Couldn't get hired again in finance. Last I heard, he was working at a car rental counter in Newark, still telling anyone who'd listen that I had manipulated our father. I didn't need to say anything back. He ruined himself. After the dust settled, I sat in Dad's old office one night, just me and a glass of bourbon. I looked around at the pictures on the wall, the plaques, the old fishing rod in the corner. He always said, "Protect what you build." I did. And I never heard from Nathan again.